All right, hey everyone. We are going to do a quick rapid fire version of getting some market growth data from Statista, the statistical data resource that you might have access to through your university or even your company later on. And we're going to pull in some of that into Tableau and graph it. Really simple, just getting started with 1 to 3 graphs that help us set the context for when we're looking at how a company is doing in their operations on social media, in their strategy, in their e-commerce, and all that sort of thing. Like, what is the market opportunity that they're trying to capture from that? So, if the industry isn't growing at all or it's shrinking, that's a much different, scenario where you're going to be like competing against keywords and fighting for market share, or are you opening up whole new categories and growth is skyrocketing by 20% or more? And how do you want to create new areas and niches for that? So Statista is pretty awesome. If your company or university has access, you can go to a link that will get you through a proxy server. So it used to be that you had to VPN in or be on campus, and now there's a special link that's called a proxy server that can get you right there without even creating an account. You're just part of the site license for that institution. So that link is available to click through. So go ahead and do that. Don't sign up for a new account. You can just do it that way. And let's see if I can show you what that looks like. I'm going to start sharing and into the infinite depths of that. We are going to pop into Statista. So if you do fill this out in your email address, there it'll send you an email that'll say you already have access to your company, blah, blah, blah. But you can go directly through a link I will send you, and you should be good to go. Um, yeah, so what we can do from that is you will end up getting a link, and I'm already a couple deep there, but we'll go back a few, and you'll notice the URL has that library or that university or company as part of the URL. So it's kind of a pass through to get access there, allowing cookies, whatever. Clicking allow 400 times a day now. That's okay. Here, I'm going to shrink my screen there so you can see. So here is where I suggest searching for CAGR. So CAGR is the compound annual growth rates of a company or an industry or some type of market. So what that tells us is the value of the revenue or sales in the market usually. And note that's not profit. So if you are a $10 billion airplane company and you make negative $50 in profit, sometimes that's a little less impressive. Sometimes it's you're investing in it, like Amazon in its early days, or even now building distribution centers and stuff like that. If you are not making profit, that's because you're building warehouses that will then sell even more goods to many, many more people. So it's not exactly a perfect thing to look at just revenue or just profit and just at a point in time. Really looking at it, as it goes in the future, what you think might happen to it. But a long story short, we are looking at CAGR, or the compound annual growth rate. So you can just see maybe it was $1 million business or industry last year and it's $1 billion in 5 years. That's what we're looking for. So let's go with CAGR of e-commerce. So I'm just going to go really broad with e-commerce. So if we're going to do 3 graphs, I want to see what e-commerce is doing in general. So maybe my company is part of e-commerce and I want to see maybe in general or maybe by category. So that first one that pops up is by category. So that's a pretty good place to start. So like overall e-commerce obviously is probably growing, but in like what categories more the cookies? Great. So 2017 to 2025, and we want to make sure this is up-to-date data. It was released in January 2022, so can't get much fresher than that within the last month. Sometimes you have to be careful because if it's this date range and it's predicted for, say, 2020 to 2025, because obviously 2025 hasn't happened yet that I can recall. But if you have data that's like a prediction data, so say it was predicting what 2020 would be, 2020 already happened, sadly. Um, but you would want the actuals for those predictions and not some old predictions. So something to watch out for when you look for data here, but this is good to go. We have it by category. Food obviously is a category online through, Instacart, Whole Foods, all these like new amazing direct-to-consumer brands or ones that you see in the grocery store that also sell online, like Siete tortilla chips are on the other side of this laptop, and I order a subscription to some of those that they don't have in store that are really cool. Um, yeah, so that is a huge growth, like 26% year over year is massive. But you also have, electronics a little bit slower. So there was kind of a bump there for like uh, Chromebooks and webcams like the one I'm on and microphones and stuff like that when we all went to remote work. But electronics in general right now in the US is, about 7%. So not uh, too small, but not huge either. So you're going to have a lot of competition. You're going to be fighting over a smaller pie. And then what's the profit on that as well? So that's another sort of layer to it. And, the margins for a lot of electronics are small. So where you would make money on that, like if you were Apple, you would make money on things like services, services to repair, services for warranty, app store sales. Are just hugely profitable. So it's a little bit different than just looking at the hardware and the sales there. So a lot to talk about there, and we really just want to graph things. And I'm just trying to set the stage for here's what a good graph could look like. Here's how you download these graphs from Statista, and you've got a choice here in having PDF, Excel, images, or PowerPoint. So those you could just slide into a deck if you were, wanting to have it exactly like this and not bringing anything else there. So in the future, when you're doing that, it's 2 in the morning and your role's at work, but we are bringing this into Tableau. So we're going to click XLS, that Excel file, and save it to a folder that is safe. We're going to open it in Excel before we open it in Tableau. And I'm going to double click that. We're going to talk about it a little bit before we bring it in to make sure it is good to go. So what's really nice about Statista, which is spelled like that, it's not Statistica, which is statistically what people spell it as. You want to enable editing in Excel. I would suggest not using numbers for a Mac. That is not a serious program. You can click enable editing so you can do these sorts of things and clean it up before you go. This is just an overview tab. So it kind of gives us an idea of what we want to use for our own title. We can modify that when we go into Tableau, but we won't be using this tab. We're going to be using the data tab. We need to clean it up a little bit. So these first rows, we have that in the other tab. We have product category is what these things are. And this is the CAGR in percentage, so that growth rate. So you could put like growth rate, or you could put CAGR percent in that field title. You can, change the size here. Tableau won't care, it'll figure it all out, but just for while we're doing this, if you'll notice that lower left triangle thing, we can fix this either here or in Excel or in Tableau, but you can highlight all of these. So I clicked Shift and then the last one to do all of them, or you can drag down with your click and drag. There's a little warning sign there. It says this is a number stored as text. So it figured out that was a number and it's stored as a text data type. We want to convert to a number there because that's a percentage. And now it'll be easier for the Tableau to handle. I can show you what it looks like if it's not there, but we can do it that way. Actually, let me undo that so we have it both ways. I'm going to put that over here too. So I'm going to put, let's just call it old CAGR. And this one, I'm going to do it the right way. So you wouldn't normally have both of these, but I want to show you what it looks like in Tableau so you can fix it if you do. And we need to get rid of these extra rows. So I clicked right on the 5, not in the cells, but there, Shift, click right on the 1, right click or command click on a Mac and delete. And because I need a row above there, you can go insert or here, right click on the 1 after you highlighted the whole thing and click insert, and it'll insert a row. There's like 50 different ways to do all of these things in Excel and Tableau. So if you have faster ways, by all means, do that. There's some really good shortcut help things on Instagram with Excel Dictionary is the profile, or on TikTok, Miss Excel is good as well. And we are going to delete that first row because we don't need it. We want this super clean, just a nice little table like a database, and our data field title here, remember, it was product category. And this is our CAGR percent, and this was old CAGR. I guess I accidentally deleted that, so whatever. All right, I'm gonna go ahead and click save, and that was our, try to remember the name there. You can rename it if you want, and I'm gonna close that out, and we're gonna go into Tableau. I already have a few things here. Normally you could do, let's just go ahead and do a new one. File, new. Might already be up. It's coming up. There we go. Firing up Tableau from scratch. So if you do project files and you have multiple data, which we will be doing, it's all going to be in one file. You're not going to have a file per each graph, and you certainly aren't going to have a file for each project assignment. Now, if you're doing something totally different and unrelated, have that in a different file. That's like a whole different ballgame. But normally, we're going to be going to File, New Data Source. So I'll repeat this a lot when I'm doing this, but when you do connect to data, which is okay for the first one, but after that, you'll only want to do that if you want them linked together by a common theme, like a student ID or a company name, where you have lots of different data and you want it all to link. But that's not what we're going to be doing most of the time. Most of the time in this class, you're going to be doing this in a unconnected way, because this statistics data doesn't match the social media data. We're just bringing it in because it's the same sort of thing. So looks like that was the data we were working on in Excel. It's going to come up here in the data source tab. And normally when we only have one tab of data, like we have that CSV and it's just one file, it'd already be here and it'd be loading it in and you'd see it. But we have two database tabs, or two table tabs of those Excel sheets. One is that overview with all the description stuff, and one is the data. So we want to drag and drop that data right here, since it didn't know which one we wanted to graph, and we could have done either one. Here we go. So what I wanted to point out, we got product category as that text string ABC. The number one, it figured out because we did that little feature in Excel where it figured out that there was a number stored as text. So it already knew that was a number and it was a decimal. So smart on Tableau for figuring that out. And that old one, since it still was in that format, even though it looked the same, it had that little triangle in the upper left in that Excel cell, that thinks it's a ABC string. But we could just fix that here and change it to a number decimal right away. I'd recommend doing that right here on this data source tab before you go to the sheet. And then here we'll see if we have to do anything else as well, which we do. So if you did that part in Excel, it's all ready to go. It's below that line. That's the measure section there. And above that on the top side is the dimensions. So like what you graph things across, like categories or time, names, things like that. For that old one, it did, when it first came in, think it was a text string and thought it might be a dimension. It was wrong, but it's up here in the dimensions. So even though we change it to a number, we also need to tell it to convert to a measure. So it's really your call whether you do some of that prep in Excel. There's actually a Tableau product like called Tableau Prep that does something similar, or you can do it here on this part of the product as well. But we have our data in here. I'm going to point out a couple things. One, it has this long name, which is annoying, and all of the things are data. So if you want, you can right click on that and rename that. So I could call that Statista, CAGR, or actually let's just call it, this is the source. And the source is great and we want to cite the source, but it's not really the main part of the show. So we'll just put CAGR e-commerce, and then we can add a little more in the title and stuff like that. Here we just want to see what it is really quickly and make sure we've got it. I'm going to do one thing that you don't necessarily have to do right now, but you will later when you publish it to Tableau Public. You do have a little can there, and that's a database can. You can right click on this and click extract data. So this pop-up will come up. If you're at a company and you have a really big data set, you really need to make sure you filter it down so you don't bring in every record they have ever sold for something. But right now we only had like 9 lines of data, so you don't really need to do anything on that other than click extract, and it'll make sure it's in a nice little package in this file. You can click OK there. I should have probably saved this as a file before. I'll show you what to do so that doesn't happen. We need to save always as a Tableau TWBX file. It's not the default because a lot of times you'll have the data on a database and you have the Tableau file you're working with. It never touches that underlying Excel file or later a SQL server if you're in a company. But this puts it in a little package so that I can see your data, so the people you share it with, it's just in one little file that you can email around or upload to Dropbox or whatever like that. So I'm going to make sure I click TWBX and call that something else and save. I'll give it a second as it's saving everything there. All right, so now we can bring in product category and drag and drop that to columns. Remember, you can also flip columns and rows with this transpose icon there, whatever works best for your data, and always use these little stretcher bars to fit everything that you want on the screen. Nothing should be cut off, and I'll talk about that a little bit more. Control Z undoes, and these options as well, it's like fit width or height or entire view, as well as text size, and you can change all of these different things. So we'll cover more of that in a bit. But all right, this is our compound annual growth rate. You can drag and drop it here, you can drag and drop it there. So a lot of different options. One thing we can do here, I noticed this is really long, so you can right click on that and edit alias. Looks like beauty, health, personal, and household. You know, for my purposes, beauty and health is fine today. It depends on what you're presenting, whether you need that granularity, but I don't think we need that detail today, and it fits much better. So one thing to think about with users is, can they easily tell which one's at the top, or are they trying to figure out, oh, electronics is a little bit higher than media? If you just sort with descending or ascending, you should be good to go. Let's call this market growth, commerce by category. And of course we would want to do United States, I think it was 2017 to 2025. Work with the sizing, make it publishable. What would you see in the cover of New York Times or Wall Street Journal or things like that? Click apply. And you could even, I would make this smaller, but source Statista. I almost did that wrong. Statistica seems to be what everyone spells it as, a little hybrid between Statista and statistics, but click OK there, make it even smaller. You want to give trust that it's real data coming from a real place, but it is not the star of the show. The star of the show is what it is, and that is more important than just where it came from. Great. So we are in an automatic bar chart. You can change the color that way. Also click Control and drop that measure to color, so it's both on the graph, graphing the length of the bar and also the intensity. So that makes it a little bit more like we're talking about food. We're like really wanting to draw attention to the most there. It's not entirely necessary. Usually that's kind of nice to do that overlay when you have another variable, so there's a second one. So if profit was that second variable, this would be a really powerful graph because it's like growing that big and profit's that big. You should jump right into that category right now, maybe, all else equal. You can also edit these legend titles because they look like math things, so that is not usually fun for most people. So we can click OK there. Let's see, we can change the size there a little bit. You can also change the size of the bar within that. You can increase it, so you have to kind of notice the spacing and adjust there, but you could increase this and adjust the spacing there, maybe want it thinner. However fits your aesthetic style. We do want to get out of the color trap here of the defaults. You really want to choose intentionally whatever matches the brand guidelines or the aesthetic and vibe of what you're doing, or the newspaper paper and style. So eMarketer and The Economist often use a lot of black and red. USA Today might be a little bit more colorful. Charter Daily on the web and their email newsletter stuff has a decent amount more color. But we just want to get out of that default blue because we will fall asleep. Here's like green and gold or red and gold. So you can change these instead of that smooth gradient. You can choose a stepped color, so there's only a few options, and you can flip it. So it's really good to kind of test this out. So like, is the darker red smaller or larger? So it's something you can do with user testing later on if it's understandable what that means. But I'm going to click that and OK. I'm also a big fan of not doing too many labels. So like, this is too many if that was all. But if you just wanted to do the minimum and the maximum, that's an option. Or if you just wanted to do the maximum. So maybe I do that so that I don't have to have the person going from that bar all the way down to the axis with their eyes just to see what that was on the line to the axis. So that's an option. You can also right click on all of these variables and click format, and this comes up. So there's two sections, the axis and the pane. I guess I could, here, why don't I change the color so you can see. Looks like, click format. And so if I did shading and red, so you can see that's the axis. And I'll undo that because it's not bright. But then the pane is a little bit different. There, it's the labels of the numbers in there. So that's what I want to change that 26 to. So they have a number of options here. I think the default should be, that is, we're going to do custom. I don't want those decimal places there. That's fine for me. So that's 26%. You can edit this too. That doesn't look quite right. You could do, you could spell it out. It really depends on your audience. It's nice to get rid of some acronyms in case you have people training and learning or unfamiliar with the data. I could spell it right for once, and we'll go with percentage because the percentage covers what rate is, or you could just do CAGR. So as long as it's clear what it is and it's not just too short or whatever. Also, category is up here in the title. So do we need it here? I actually don't think so. So I can right click on that, hide label for rows. And because this is labeled here with compound growth rate and that is on bar chart already, I might not even need this legend. So it really depends how minimalistic you want to go. Like, is the user able to see what percentage it is, and are they able to see everything they want there? There's also alignment. Could put it there. Let's see, add. Let's do all so you can kind of see that alignment in the middle, or the left, or the right. So finding whatever works for your presentation is nice. This, for example, is close to the label, so you can read it right next to the category. But maybe you want it in the middle to see, like, okay, 26 is the largest number. Just other things to experiment with like that. Another thing you could do on the title is right click on that title box, click format title, kind of like what we're doing with the axis and everything before. You can change the background of that. It's pretty rough there, but you can add shading, sorts of, oh, that's for the caption, all sorts of different stuff like that. And you can certainly do that on the graph as well behind there. So lots of stylistic attributes you can start playing around with what you wanted to show. So much more to go. This is really just getting started, trying to do something as close as you can to the companies that you were analyzing. So is that e-commerce in general, e-commerce by category, and trying to search for a subcategory or your specific company. So there will be the growth of Lululemon is definitely in some of those graphs out there, and you can see that compared to other companies. So try to pick 3 and graph them. Let's do one more. Let's do another data sheet so we can see beyond a bar graph another option for us. So I'm going to do a different industry. So for gaming, downloaded from Statista, the market cap of it's about the top 10 gaming companies. So it's again pulling in that data tab there that I'd already cleaned up in Excel. And so that's gonna come here, and then see, I guess I didn't do the Excel little arrow. I'm gonna make sure that is a decimal number instead of an ABC. Create a new sheet. I have the format menu up so you can X out, accidentally close that, arrow it back. So there's our data, and we're on that gaming market cap. So you have the company name, bring it up there. Market cap, see it's accidentally in that dimension section at the top. You wanna convert it to a measure. It is a number already. So click convert to measure. And we can bring that, you can drop it on those ABCs or just drop it in the rows, flip it around and do this. But what I wanted to do is click that show me tab up here. We're going to do a pie charts, much maligned, but actually kind of good for this kind of scenario. Just like when you're looking at a class and you want to see how many majors of each kind are in the class, then a percentage in a pie chart isn't too bad. There's whole articles on anti-pie charts, but we're gonna stick with it. So you could choose entire view and see it that way. There's also a shortcut key, Control Shift B or Command Shift B should get bigger for you there. But those are just colors in a circle, so that will tell you nothing. You need to make sure there are labels here, so you can do Control or Command and click company and drag and drop it to label. So that's looking a little bit better. And you can also do the same thing. So when we do that control, it keeps it where it was, which we need it because it tells us the size of those shapes, and drop that into label as well. So we have the measure and the label there. If you click label, actually I'm going to do a couple cool things here. So one, we can change the size there of, this was the market cap, so I'm highlighting that variable that's in gray. So you don't change that because it's the actual precise thing that pulls in that from the data. And I'm going to change that to size 12. You can change other things like color, but I'm going to do something neat in a second. Click apply. You can also write things after it. So that's 19.56. But what is that? $19.56? But it's actually, you could say $sign B, like a billion on it. Just say, type it out and say $1 billion, which is really long, but it's more human sounding, so it's a little long there, but maybe $sign billion. I don't know, it's up to you. So try those different things out. I'll make that bold a little bit, maybe change it to a different typeface because we are a lot of designers and everyone's using the default one usually, so I think we really need to work on that. It should at least be Helvetica or something cool, but let's give that a shot and click OK. I'm going to do something different too. On that font, on that drop down, notice there's something cool here. So match mark color. So there's so much text there that, especially if they were close together, this I think would maybe improve like 1 second faster. Maybe that yellow is a little hard to read. We could work with that, but know that it's tied to that slice of the graph pretty well. Now we can go into colors and change that palette to something else. Do a drop down. Superficial stones, one of my favorites. Click apply. You can make your own too. And click assign and apply. That work? Okay, maybe we'll choose a different one. That looks good. Okay, yeah, Nuriel stone's really good. You can individually change these if you don't like the automatic assignment, especially if you wanted to make it fit the brand guidelines. Click apply and go. We're going to call this gaming market cap top companies. You could also go in here and do the same thing and say, well, it's 20 or as of November 2021. Cool. Apply. softer opacity. So I click color in this marks tab area, dropping down the opacity a little bit to make it softer, and adding a gray border or something so there's a little bit of delineation between the different angles and things like that. But there you go. So something to mix it up between just, bar charts. This is the kind of thing that works well. Now, this graph would not work well for a pie chart because it's already a percentage. So combining percentages is a weird thing to do for a pie chart. So it's like pie chart is a percentage and you're doing a percentage of percentages. So don't do that. Save it for something where these are like regular numbers and then have a total and you're trying to see what percentage of that total is that market share or is that market cap, things like that. Should be good to go. All right. So thanks everyone, and give that a go and reach out for questions, post them on the chat or wherever you can find me.